Bulubinaka, welcome to another episode of LegendFM Radio Rambles in the lead up to our birthday, our 40th birthday. In July, we're catching up with some of the legends who made LegendFM legendary. And I'm really happy to be sitting down with two of the breakfast show hosts who really took LegendFM to another level back in the day. Foon, Beddoes. Hi guys.
Hi. We had so much fun.
Yeah. That was my very first question. What is you two's favorite memory together as a breakfast show team?
Oh my God.
I'll let you answer that because to me there's so many.
Yeah.
For me,
one that stands out.
It was, every day there were moments that were just absolutely hilarious, and I suppose it's the funny ones that always make an impact on you. But when you spend every single day in being hilarious, everybody else might have not thought we were hilarious.
Yeah.
But
we were laughing at ourselves all the time. I mean, for me, I can't give one specific memory because I have in life, I have a very clear feeling and memory about my time on Breakfast with Neil. Mm-hmm. And it was nothing but awesome. And ironically, we didn't even know each other that well. Yes, we just clicked, some people you have spark with and some people you don't. I've never had an spark with anyone like I did with Neil, and we just got on. And I think it showed. I mean, the listeners you heard it, you felt it. Mm-hmm. We simply got on like a house on fire. We had similar interests, similar education experience, lots of similarities, and we had a great time, and we love music.
That's right. Well, we both come from musical families to start with.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's our grounding was very much the same, and our lives. So that did help. And like Kim said, we didn't actually know each other very well, and we just absolutely clicked to the point where we were finishing off each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And for a radio show with two hosts, when that happens,
it's magic.
It is magic.
Well, that's true. Actually, I was about to ask the finishing off each other's sentences.
Yes.
Because a radio partnership can be, very intimate. You see this person at their best and at their worst.
Well, when you see somebody at 4:00 in the morning, every morning is seen slightly at the worst, then becomes the best.
So, you guys, you're doing the breakfast show together. You go on air. You're doing your thing on air, making that magic. What were you guys talking about off air? Once the mics went off?
Well, for me, I had a full-time job. So I was doing the breakfast show and a full-time job. So I'd literally be out the door, 9 o'clock finish, jump into the cab, dash over to my full-time job. At the time, I was... for breakfast, I was the marketing manager for Tapus. Yeah, I was working full-time job, so we didn't get to chat much after work. It was just 6 to 9 and then gone.
Yes.
And you had your work as well.
I did, and it was very rare that we met before 6. Because...
I think the statute of limitations has run out of there.
Yes, definitely.
How many times was he late?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'd say
it's okay.
Out of the 5 days a week, probably 2.
Okay.
Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
I was late. I was never that late, but I mean, that's called trust. You absolutely trust your co-hosts that they're going to take it on and open it up, because Kim will be there at 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
3:45, she's there.
Eagle beaver.
I loved the job. I flippin' loved it.
She absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And I slept through alarms and stuff. I'm not a morning person. It takes, for a morning person to do the breakfast show on radio is really pushing.
I think for me that came from, I just realized now, that came from my previous life of when I was young. I used to be a swimmer.
That's right.
I was a competitive swimmer. So up at 4 a.m. for 5 a.m. training was something I was able to go back into.
That's right. And on the contrary, I was a competitive grog drinker.
But we complemented each other.
That's right. We meet in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah, because you mentioned the similarities. What do you think are the biggest differences between you two in terms of your personality on air?
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there are much more similarities than differences.
Yeah.
And the differences there seem to work in your favor. Like I said, you guys complement each other.
Well, for me, the differences is cooking is not my thing.
Oh.
And this man is a master.
Yes, well, I'm a trained chef.
Anything to do with food, that was his lane, and I stayed away.
And we touch on the subject at least once a show on food, because it is my trade, it's my study trade. Although I've been doing radio for many years, it was a subject that I could talk about with utmost
knowledge.
I knew what I was talking about.
Your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The best in the trade could not fault me.
Did you guys ever touch on social issues, political issues back then?
We touched on every sort of issue possible.
We were told to stay away from political issues.
Yes.
So that was...
That must be interesting for you.
It was interesting for me
Yes.
because the leader of opposition at the time happened to be my father.
Yes. So it was a tough one.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I joked a little bit with my dad. I was like, man, it's a little bit too much again because you got all the ads coming on saying breakfast with Neil Foon and Kim Beddoes. And then at the news hour at 8 o'clock, leader of opposition, Nick Beddoes. I was like, it's a bit too much again for first thing in the morning.
You gotta pretend you didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway.
Yeah. But I remember one issue. I don't know if I can still. The only time we ever talked about a topic where I remember being told, don't, stop, don't bring it up again, was there was a big drug bust.
Oh.
And the topic was triads.
Right. Oh.
And I was told, zip it. Don't bring that up again. Do you remember there was a big drug bust? It was all over the papers. And keeping in mind, this is 22 years ago.
Yeah.
As you know, in the news today, it's pretty common. It's
Yeah.
every second day. But 22 years ago, and it was a significant bust, it was really hard for us not to talk about it. I talked about it a little bit, but yeah.
And I think at the time,
I was reading.
our policing system in the country was still trying to deal with it internally, and us on radio talking about it would have made their job. I don't know. I don't think it'll make it harder. It was just touching on a subject.
Well, it was a new subject for all of us.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
I think we're told rather let them try to do their job before us trying to air all everything that we're seeing as dirty laundry, but isn't possibly. Because there was. It was, I don't know, it was a sudden unknown subject for us locally anyway.
That was the only time
Yeah.
that we talked about a topic that got a little bit scary.
Ah.
That was the only time that I was warned, not a good idea.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the reality is that was not our role. Between 6 and 9,
That's true.
our role was to help people get up, get the great music
And you guys
going.
did that very well.
That's
Get
right.
the great music
We are
going.
entertainers, not detectives.
Yes, put the right frame of mind on for your day.
Yeah.
And news, well, that's the news department's role. So we did stay away in that regard.
Yeah. Oh, obviously, there were softer stories in the news that were happening at the time that we
Which we
could
talked
touch
about,
on and play with and sometimes have fun with, delve a little bit more into it, question a few things from the news stories, stuff like that.
Right.
That were happening every day.
Right.
And I suppose being in touch with every day helps when you're doing breakfast, and it's about being at one with your audience, I suppose, and you know that. You know, you've got to always have your finger on the pulse, knowing what was happening in the community that we have to live in.
And keeping in mind, 22 years ago, social media didn't exist.
Well,
that's right.
That's what I was about to ask.
So like now, you just go onto your Facebook and you know all the news,
So back then
everything
we
that's
just had
happening.
gossip.
I mean, everything you saw or you heard or you were told or you observed yourself. So or you read in the news. So it was very different back then.
Speaking of the times before the rise of social media, before the internet and all that kind of thing, where were you guys getting your stories from?
We had the internet.
Yeah.
But very basic.
Yes.
I don't even know what it was called. It wasn't YouTube. Google didn't exist. I can't remember what the original thing was
But it was
called.
there.
It was there. Like you could type in, and our favorite website, also basic, I don't think it even had images to go to, was some website that gave us facts on this date.
Oh my God.
Remember?
Yes, so
and we used to print that out.
Yeah, all of those
on
things.
this day, did you know that on this day, this happened?
Yeah, but you know what? When you're on radio with no social media platform and a very an internet platform as well that's still in its novice type form, you've got to be really creative, and you've always got to have your finger on the pulse with everything that's happening, not just in the country but in the world,
overseas too.
in the overseas. You know, so we were constantly. I'd spend my day listening to everything, reading everything, and constantly filling my head with stuff, and then searching for those stories that I think were worth it, and then Kim would do the same. Then we would print it and look at it.
I think we both,
we
both respectively in our own time, paid a lot of attention to world news, world news and local news, and then so it was a combination of that and the combination of our day-to-day experiences. A lot of our day-to-day experiences, because just as we have today, where you have some neighborhoods in the country, many neighborhoods in the country that don't have water. or in like my neighborhood at the moment, we've had something over 10 to 12 power cuts just in the last last few weeks.
Yes.
I mean, those are tropical issues that you're experiencing. So a lot of those daily tropical issues we talked about on
Well, that's
radio.
right. And there are issues faced by
And
not just
issues
us,
haven't
but
changed.
everybody.
Yes. So, okay, here's a question for you two. Yeah, you guys come from that era. Do you think easy access to all this information have made today's personalities a bit lazier?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's made your life so much easier, with all that information at your fingertips, where we had to search and pull and even between, when our microphones are turned off, when the audience is listening to a song, we're sitting there dissecting a story and trying to figure out all sorts of issues when they didn't know, and trying to work it out, where things are a little easier today because you're fed so much. We live in this world of information.
Yeah.
And it's there at your fingertips, where we had to search for it. And no, I don't think it's just a different way of doing things.
Well, from my perspective, I had never been on radio before. Was when Neil and I joined the breakfast show together. Neil was a seasoned radio personality already. What I did not understand or did not know about radio, and I still think it applies today, is people may not realize that it's actually really mentally exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
it is.
people don't realize
Yes.
that. It's you might think, I mean, we say it was fun and we're playing great music and
I'm
we're
only
talking.
19.
Yeah. but the
I'm only
reality
19.
You
is
are only like
it
mental stress
is
is
mentally exhausting.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's 3 hours and you're at a higher level of energy because you have to give
You have
that
to- yeah.
energy to your audience.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
Yeah.
your brain is thinking, you're like, is that funny? Is that not funny? Is that appropriate? Is that not appropriate?
Yeah.
What's our next talk segment? Lining up the music so we're finishing on time for news, not getting in trouble from the news department.
Yeah.
It's actually more intense than people realize.
Right. That's
So,
true.
and then
Yeah.
I think from your perspective, from today's radio announcers, I don't know. I wouldn't say you guys have it any easier. I think you might have it harder because there's so much more information
There's so much
out
again.
there. It's
Yes.
like information overload. How do you go through all the information out there, all the information on newsfeed, and simmer it down to the few key things that you're going to talk about in the morning? So it did feel, when I was on radio with Neil, it did feel like we just press play, open the mic, and start talking and laughing. It did feel like
Felt like
that.
that.
It felt like that.
Yes.
For me, it felt like that. It felt like I was meeting up with my best friend to play some great music and have a good Talanoa and a good Kaila for 3 hours.
Right.
But the reality is, there was a fair bit of work that went into it.
It
There was
is
a fair bit of
exhausting,
discipline that went into it.
Yes.
And the reality is, 9 o'clock when you finish and you hand over to the next show, to be honest, if I could, I would have gone home and just
gone back to
knocked
bed.
to bed,
Yeah,
knocked
absolutely,
out.
because it is
because you are so
Exhausting.
mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
How about music? Do you guys have similar taste in music or?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And we liked all the same music. And do you remember there was a particular listener that nearly got us in trouble multiple times because he used to contact us and say, I just cannot start my day with
What song was
Foot Trot Flats.
Slice of heaven.
Slice of
Right,
Heaven.
that's right.
And
We
we
played.
loved it. We loved that song too. So
Good morning. We're starting our day with Slice
and
of Heaven.
6:30.
You guys know that's still going on.
You're kidding.
We've got a Jack who wants to listen to Mental as Anything.
Yes.
Like
Every day.
Every day.
Yes. So we had a listener that
Still in
would
this
call us.
YouTube, right?
He would call us specifically on, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Right.
and ask us, please. And we're like, okay, just for you, but we can't keep doing this. We're going to get in trouble. And we did get a little bit in trouble. But yeah, to answer your question, because that's another thing. We can start on one topic, and the next minute with this topic adds to this topic, and we're off we go.
Because Kim and I like talking.
Yes, yes, yes,
We
yes.
can't tell.
Yes.
Kim and I like talking. We'd have somebody at the window going,
Time's up quickly.
Oi.
But in terms of music, to answer your question, we have very similar taste. And the music on Legend FM, we loved it. So.
Well, it's interesting because we both come from musical families. Both our
Even though we
fathers
didn't know each other.
are musicians.
Yes.
And so we've been exposed to music since we were
Yes.
little children and having the band in the sitting room and all
Right.
those things. So
We grew up with that, eh?
That's right. Our lives are very similar when it comes to music in general.
And I mean, I think it's kind of cool that two people who were essentially strangers beforehand came together in the studio, and turns out we found more similarities in each other than we found differences.
Right.
Yes.
We got on like a house on fire, and we had a great time and played great music. So it was magic.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, our parents actually knew each other.
But you guys had never met.
No, not really, because when you're a younger person, when you're younger, there's a slight age difference, and also growing up in two separate towns.
Yes, I'm an Andy girl,
in the country,
Silver
and,
boy.
and I grew up in Suva. So yeah, but I've always known Kim was there.
Okay.
You know, yeah.
And going back to what you said about that listener calling up for the particular song all the time,
Foot Flats.
Put your flats.
that,
Slice of heaven.
that relationship between personalities and the listeners.
I mean, those relationships, they become your friends.
Yeah.
Almost. You know, you just speak to the same people every morning.
I mean, 22 years later, you guys remember the song, remember him calling
Well,
us.
that's right, because there are moments in your radio career, and these people are a part of your life.
And also, we had listeners that would call us almost every day.
Yes,
And
right.
I remember that, one time I had takeaway on a Sunday afternoon. I had allergic reaction. I had to go to the hospital, have an injection in my bum, and yada, yada, yada. Couldn't come to work on Monday. But on Tuesday morning, it really warmed my heart when I was on radio again. The listeners were calling, and they were like, Kim, what happened?
okay?
Are you okay? And they were genuinely concerned.
How was it?
So I talked about it on radio. I was like,
Okay,
dear
cool.
Lord, this is what happened on Sunday. I ate this, not mentioning where I ate or anything. That's my allergic reaction, not the restaurant's problem. But I told my story. We were very honest about our lives, and I think that came across. The listeners could feel it. We talked about our day-to-day experience.
Sometimes too much.
A little bit too honest. I
The
could-
injection went in my bum.
Yes,
Yeah, that's right.
yes. Okay. One time in band camp. So for me, I have my parents. I have a public persona father, and I have a very private mother.
Right.
So father, no issue with me being on radio, talk, whatever, go for it. Mother, on the other hand, very private. So my mother said, please, whatever you do, don't talk about us, your family, and everything. That's private. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
Mom. Okay.
Yeah, I used to do the same.
So then I was like, Neil, it doesn't wake up till 7.
That's right.
So we just keep.
We've got 6 to 7. That's right.
Spoiling my family and family stories, I'll do before she wakes up. No sense. So all good. I talked to, shared a few of my family experiences, and then one day my mom came to Suva and we went to visit an auntie.
Oh my gosh.
And I can remember, I won't name names of which auntie, but I remember we walked into the lounge room and my auntie's like, hey Kim, how are you? Hugged me, kissed my mom, and she's like, man, and so she was our biggest fan. I did not realize this.
Oh my God.
And she said, man, I love listening to you and Neil in the morning. And I had no idea. And my mom had walked in front, and I was like, too late. And mom's like, no idea about what? And she said, this. And my mother just turned around and looked at me, and I was like, oh.
It's amazing though that you thought you could keep a secret by telling it on national radio.
In this country.
I know.
In this country. Not
I know.
Hindsight?
Yes.
I know. But I don't know. For me, I just thought
You were talking to him.
I was just talking to you.
She was telling me the
Yeah.
story.
I was telling you, we were
Yeah.
telling Omanda, and the mic was there, and I didn't envision. Listen, I don't know whether it's a female thing or I just thought not many people listen to us.
Right.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I thought maybe a
Now,
handful.
nobody's listening.
No one's. Who the heck
awake.
is listening at this time?
Yeah.
No one's really listening. Everyone's only listening from 8 o'clock onwards. So
Right.
it's fine. It's just Talanoa between us. So I never envisioned the people listening. And turns out I was a little bit wrong, because there's a lot more people listening than I realized.
Yes.
Oh man. That's crazy though, man.
It's one of those things. You know?
And you were you holding anything back on it, or were you just
No, absolutely not.
Huh?
No, I'd get calls from my family all the time saying, please stop. You know? Yeah, because breakfast radio is interesting, and you know that as well, because you don't have a lot of time. It's very intense, and there are subjects within your personal life that fit into the subjects of today
Yes.
and that are working.
Right.
And if
So
you
often.
have first hand at something,
So often.
share it. That's what
Right.
you're there for. You're a radio personality, share it, because everybody else can't. They don't have a microphone in front of them.
Another time
You know?
I remember, you were talking about your family history.
Yes.
And you gave this fantastic story of your family history. And after you finished, it was like, during the break, I called up my dad. I was like, Dad, Neil just shared his family history, and it's amazing. did our family do anything half decent that I can talk about? He's like, did you not know? And then my father shared my family history, and then I went on. I was like, oh, thank God. From my dad's side, my father's family built the first pub in New Zealand.
Cool.
And they were shipbuilders, and they repaired the katisak and whatnot. But so anyway, I had to, since Neil shared such a really interesting story about his family history.
You wanted to.
But at the same time, well, it made me realize that I didn't know my own family history. And I was like, how cool. And how interesting.
Yeah, something would have happened over time that I questioned something as well. And it just, you've always got to know where you come from if you want to know where you're going half the time. And I think as we were a little bit older on radio, we weren't 20 anymore, we weren't 19. I was 15 or 16 when I first started radio. But I suppose when you're doing breakfast on Legend FM, your audience is who you are as well. And they question the same things you question. Yeah. They want to know about themselves, and when you're younger, you don't. And I suppose those are those moments where you were given such an opportunity to question something.
Cool.
And if the audience is going to go out and question their own lives and their own history and stuff like that, what a great opportunity it is.
It makes you start thinking.
It's kind of cool, you two as a partnership, because it's funny, but you guys are like a buddy cop movie. You're the seasoned campaigner who's been at the wrong time, and you're the fresh rookie who's just enthusiastic about it all. It works, man.
Yes.
It really works.
Do you remember there was a manager from Fiji TV that used to call us and correct us if we got our pronunciation wrong or anything wrong?
Yeah, I mean,
we had judges and managers and lawyers and people, and I did love the fact that they would just call up and like, no, that's you've pronounced that incorrectly. You should be saying it this way.
Yeah, so it's really difficult when you've got a judging audience. Literally judging. Pick up the phone and say, no, you're wrong. You've said this wrong. You're slightly unfactual here and stuff like that.
But we didn't take offense to it.
No,
we were like, wow, they're listening. That's great. Whereas today, people will go Facebook post and say, oh, you said this, da-da-da-da-da. And I guess it's a bit more attacking. Yeah. Whereas back then it wasn't, because they just called, hey, by the way.
It was more of a close-knit community, really.
Absolutely. And being on Legend FM, Legend was new. We'd only been there for a little while and was designed for people like us. Yes. It was designed for those of us who'd moved on from FM96, who've become our own person in a way, and has become a professional as well. And it's good at what they do. I mean, whether you're a professional housekeeper or homekeeper or mother or whatever, you're sort of settled in life. And you realize on Legend FM, there are a lot of other people who are far more smarter than you at a particular subject.
We knew our lane.
And you've got to keep yourself open.
That's true.
You've got to keep yourself open, because if these people are the be-all and end-all of a particular subject, you're just touching on it for a moment in your career. Listen to them.
True.
Yeah, feedback was good. But we took it positively, and it was given in a positive manner.
Well, absolutely.
And I think it was friendlier. It felt friendlier.
Yes.
It definitely was.
It wasn't the level of nanganess that you experience today as media.
I think social media hasn't helped.
Yes, it hasn't. It's brought out the nganganess in everyone.
That's true.
And there's more nganganess, there's more nastiness, there's more criticism, there's more negativity than now.
Yeah. So question for each of you. Once it was done, once your partnership had ended, what memories did you take away from that show, when we did the show together?
There's probably there's so many to touch on, because when you've got such a good having a good co-host on radio really helps. Yeah. And they become the second half of you. Because when you're bouncing off somebody and it's bouncing back, and when it's working, and this thing that you're doing, this radio, is actually working. You're there for that particular purpose, and the purpose is happening. When you don't have that as a co-host, it's really hard. So with Kim and I, you couldn't say that there's so many moments, it's every single day over the 3-hour air show, that we come out extremely happy, exhausted, but I couldn't pinpoint anything in particular. I couldn't.
So for me, the only reason I left radio is I had applied to live in the UK on a 2-year working holiday visa. So that is the only reason I left. If not, I would have carried on radio for quite a long time, I'm sure. I loved it. But what I found really interesting is when I lived and worked in London, the first thing I did is listen to all the breakfast show hosts. Then I went through and I specifically listened to the radio stations in London that were most similar to Legend FM. Because I assumed that this was their standard and this was our, because we're a small little country, Fiji in the middle of the Pacific, nobody knows us, compared to London breakfast show hosts. And so I used to listen into the particular breakfast show host that hosted basically similar to Legend FM in London. And what I've never forgotten that took me by surprise is, Neil, you and I show, if I can, not to blow the trumpet too hard, but our show was on par.
Deadly.
It was on par to the top breakfast show host in London at the time.
Yeah.
And the difference is, because I used to listen, that particular host had an entire research team. They had a mega budget with helicopters in the air. So, you know, the news included live crossover to helicopters, monitoring traffic jams and all that kind of stuff. They had all the toys, all the support. Our music was on par.
Yeah.
And us as hosts were on par without any of those bells and whistles. And I was so goddamn proud. I was like, wow, you know what? We are actually on par.
That's right. And you know why we're on par? Because we also have plenty of Rosa listeners who will call us and tell us what's
Tell us all.
You've got Anna down the road.
But I mean, for me, that was a big deal and a big sense of pride, because I was like, oh my goodness, we might be a small little country in Fiji, in the middle of the Pacific.
That's right.
But we did this, and our breakfast show was actually on par with the best in the business in the world. And then at the end of my 2-year working holiday in the UK, I traveled through Europe, and then I traveled to the US. I went to New York and Vegas and San Francisco, and I purposefully listened to their breakfast shows as well. And I was like, wow, we are on par.
Deadly.
Yeah.
All right.
But with a Fiji flavor.
Neil, thank you so much for joining us today for Radio Rambles. Your message to CFL on this 4th year.
You know, I would say absolute congratulations.
And happy birthday.
And absolute happy birthday. And I'm so glad. I've been a part of it twice on FM 96 a long time ago. And then on Legend FM with Kim and with Annie Mbulatiko as a co-host, and loved every minute of it. And so the 40 years has produced so many amazing people, you know, and so congratulations to not just CFL, but the CFL family and everybody who's been a part of it over the last 40 years. That includes all of us.
Exactly. My message is exactly the same. Happy birthday. I'm a business owner now, so I truly understand the difficulties of running a business. So to be celebrating a business turning 40 is a massive achievement. So congratulations to the entire team and to everyone that has been a part of this journey and had a huge influence on our country. Across all the radio stations, it has had a huge influence on our country, both from the perspective of the personalities and from the news aspect. And we've grown together. CFL has grown together with the country, and I think, you know, all the best for the many years to come. And thank you for letting us be a part of it.
Thank you so much for being here today.
She's going to do politics one day.
Oh, no.
That was a well-polished speech.
So good. Yeah. Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.